coming up next on the Health Hustle.
There's a certain number of ways you can start to generate leads, but ultimately, like, having conversation with people is what's going to lead them to developing a know, like, trust factor to where they want to work with you. Like, I know when I started, I used to think, oh man, if I just create content, they're going to click my link in bio and they're going to sign up with me, or they're going to book a call with me. And throughout the years, I realized, no, like, it needs to be more personal. Like, I need to actually connect with this person and show them that I can help them, but also, like, it's got to be a match for me too. Like, I need to feel like, yeah, I can help you and I actually want to help you. Like, you would be a good client. Like, that's what I want. So because of that, like, what allowed me to shift a lot of my marketing is, how can I create content that generates conversations? Or how can I start engaging with other people who are already creating content and just having conversations with them? It could be meeting them for coffee. It could be just being like, yo, dude, I really like your stuff. Like, tell me more about what you do. But for me, it's like, what are ways I can generate conversations? And you can do that through just outbound messaging, like going and engaging on people's accounts, being like, I think this would be a good client to work with. I'm going to go ahead and start talking to this person authentically and, like, build a relationship with them. And when the time is right, position my offer and say, like, hey, like, I'd love to support you professionally if you're open to it.
Hey folks, and welcome to the Health Hustle of Austin, Texas. On this show, we uncover the big ideas from your fellow health and fitness entrepreneurs in the Austin, Texas area about how they built their business and the lessons they learned along the way. Hey guys, I'm your host, Corey Hibbin, and on this episode, I had a chance to sit down with my guy, Dr. Matt Shivers. Some of the things that we get into are how he started a business while he was still in college, where he learned to be so damn resourceful, his breaking point at a physical therapy clinic and when he realized that it just wasn't for him, negotiating equity deals as opposed to just normal terms and payment offers, how to generate leads and how to get new clients. That was a big one, and I think that'll help a lot of people. Exercises to gain clarity on your goals, what he learned from traveling for 6 months, his best marketing advice, the fastest way to learn and grow your business, and so much more. Without further ado, let's go. Matt Shiver, welcome to the show. How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited. I always do a lot of research before I bring my guests on, and I'll be honest, I was disgusted with how similar our stories are.
Yeah.
It's shocking to me, honestly, as like somebody who, I used to be an OT, you used to be a PT, we both got into clinic and realized, man, this isn't for me, and just carved our own path. And so I can't wait to go back and forth with you on this.
It's going to be fun.
But before we do, has anybody ever told you what PT stands for?
Physical therapy.
Pain and torture.
Pain and torture. I mean, I guess if it depends on what type of PT you're working with and what you're doing, but
that was always my dad joke in the clinic as an OT, and because oftentimes people saw PT and OT, and I was like, sorry, you got to go see PT. You know what it stands for, right? And I would tell them that joke.
Pain and torture. Yeah. I mean, definitely in the hospital setting, it's like, because if you just had surgery, you're like, time to get you up. We're walking out of bed. You're like, no.
Yeah.
You know, you legit, like, if you want to know how to do sales, anyone listening to this, like, go spend some time in a skilled nursing facility or a hospital trying to convince people who are in pain to get out of bed. That's it. You're selling right there, right?
Yeah, and they'll cry.
They will. They'll be like, get out.
Yeah.
Like, no, this is my job. I'm gonna sit here until you're ready.
Yeah, that's a true salesman. If you can convince somebody to actually get walking on a knee that's just been replaced, you can do anything at that point. Go knock on some doors, potatoes. Like, are you kidding me right now? So in all seriousness, I really want to get into just kind of the beginning of your story as an entrepreneur. And so, like, I know quite a bit about your background in terms of like where you grew up in South Carolina, and like you getting into PT and trying the practice setting and all that stuff. And now eventually you kind of, let's get to that point where you reached a point where it was like, okay, I don't want to do this PT thing anymore. There was some moment of clarity for you and you decided to be essentially an entrepreneur. I'm sure it wasn't that clear at that moment, but I'd be curious as to like, what did that sort of look like and what was that phase of life like?
Yeah. And we were talking before the show, somebody who is like a mentor for me and now a close friend and actually coworker is Mike Bledsoe. And Mike Bledsoe had a podcast that was geared towards right on the CrossFit athlete. It's called Barbell Shrugged. Great stuff. Just great knowledge bombs. I just was really caught on, started listening to podcasts, probably was like a freshman in college. And throughout like listening to their stuff, they introduced Tim Ferriss. Tim Ferriss was one of his guests. And as a sophomore in college, not knowing anything about anything, I was like, they were at a beach somewhere in like Maui they were somewhere cool. It was a tropical location. They were doing a podcast setup similar like this, and except the backdrop was
way cooler.
Yeah. So I was like, this guy seems like he's got it made. Let me dive into what he's doing. And I picked up the 4-Hour Workweek. And when I picked that book up and read it, my mind and everything just shifted. I'm like, wait a second. You tell me I don't have to work until I'm 55 or 65 and retire? Like, you tell me I can reverse engineer how much money I need to make to live the lifestyle that I want to live right now, and it's less money than I think it has to be, and the scalability of being able to create something that is high income, high impact is actually a lot easier than I thought it was. And he was talking about stuff that nowadays we use a lot, like VAs, Airbnb. Airbnb wasn't like, I didn't know, no one knew what Airbnb was back then, but he was ahead of the game. So he was like sharing all these tools and resources that he used to help him leverage creating not necessarily a side hustle, but more of like a lifestyle business that allowed him to do what he wanted to do when he wanted to do it. And if he ever wanted to change his mind on, hey, you know what, I was doing this, but I'm going to go serve this people. Like, he could create offers on the fly. And I was like, I've got to learn more. So I sunk more into reading a lot of his books, continuing down, like listening to Mike. I eventually hired Mike as a mentor and joined his mastermind. And yeah, I was in PT school and realized while I was in PT school, I was already working with people online and realized that, man, I'm not going to be a normal PT.
Yeah, I wasn't either.
Yeah,
I didn't fit in very well. But that book, 4-Hour Workweek, definitely shook the framework for a lot of people. Actually, I remember when I first read that book, and I remember started talking to my dad about it, about how travel actually relatively isn't that expensive depending upon how you do it, and if you're smart about it and you go to certain countries and you kind of know what you're doing. And I remember having that conversation with my father, and he actually really pushed back on it a lot because he was so stuck in what he believed the framework was supposed to look like. And I remember just like bringing that to his attention, like just really challenged him in a lot of ways. And it was like almost like an uncomfortable conversation to have that with him. So it's cool that you were able to see that and also like accept that that is a reality and that was even possible. I had a similar thing too of like my biggest pullback, honestly, of working in the clinic was the fact of I was location bound. That was super challenging for me. And so like, okay, so let's go into a little bit more of, you started listening to podcasts, you started reading these books. When did that transition phase actually happen for you of getting out of the clinic?
Before I actually left clinic, or before I even graduated school, I was, while I was in PT school, I actually, let's kind of rewind back a little bit. I was in college, read that book, started realizing, oh man, I can kind of carve my own path. So I started some clubs while I was in college. I started a weightlifting club and started teaching people how to do snatch and clean and jerk, and realized, oh man, I really legit can just have an idea and get people together and find like traffic, right? I can set up a booth somewhere where people walk by and people like want to join this. This is cool. So I did that while I was in undergrad as I started a weightlifting club. It got through the university. We had trainings. We had like 3 days a week of training. So it was like, whoa, this is cool. Like if I have a dream, I can make it happen. So I did that. And then as I graduated undergrad, I went to Duke for grad school. Before I got there, I was like, all right, well, I want to keep training people. This was fun. So I just started doing outbound messaging. Didn't know what that was at the time. It's just like, I probably shot 20 or 30 gyms a message being like, hey, I'm coming to Duke for PT school and would love to trade services and coach, a class or two a week and get a free gym membership. And so I didn't position it that way, but that was essentially, that was where I was going with it. It was like, love to find a new place where I can coach essentially. And I found a gym there. So I started coaching people there and some of them started becoming my clients while I was in PT school. And then from there, I joined another online weightlifting business and was an assistant coach there. So like while I was in PT school, I probably had 20 or 30 clients at a time. And it was like, but I didn't know what I was charging. I was charging like nothing, but I was working people online while I was in PT school. So I was like, sitting there at like a neuro lecture or just something. I was like, I don't really care about this. And I was just sitting there just like talking to clients or like, doing some lead gen or like writing programs. And I was like, this lifestyle is pretty cool. Like I can be in one place and be able to work on this. And I was able to fit all that in like while I was in school. So knowing that, I was like, when I graduate, I still want to do something like this part-time. And then I kind of want to do some of the clinic stuff because I spend all this time like getting this degree. That quickly faded out. I was like, oh no, I like the online stuff better.
Can we double tap on the amount of resourcefulness that you seem to have? Have you always had that, or where does that stem from? And the reason that I bring this up is because I would say most people are conditioned to just follow the rules, check the boxes, do what I'm told, go to school, get a job, work the 9 to 5, right? Most people fall into that category. No judgment. It's just like the way that society's really built. Have you always been that resourceful? And I'll give you a quick side note while you think about that. Is I remember a PT that recently graduated school reached out to me not that long ago, and she was asking about like how to get a job, which I thought it was odd to ask me that. She just sees that I'm a pretty ambitious guy, and so she was just curious as to get some advice. And I remember her telling me that the jobs that she wanted to apply for were all required a certain amount of experience, and she just didn't think she'd get the job, and basically putting up all these like self-limiting beliefs behind herself, right? And my response to her was basically, first of all, don't self-disqualify yourself based on your experience. For sure, still put it into application. Let them make the decision as to whether you're qualified or not. Is that step number one? And step number two, if you really want it, maybe you could just like send them an email with like a video of you talking about yourself and introducing yourself and how you could be about you. Right. You say that as if like that's very obvious.
Send it to a decision maker for sure.
Right.
Like,
right. And that was the first thing I thought. Yeah. But I know myself prior to essentially pursuing my own passions and careers and becoming a business owner, I probably would have had that same mentality. So I have a lot of empathy for it. So my original question obviously is like, have you always been that resourceful, and where does that come from?
I don't think so. I actually think I picked up most of that in college when I was doing that weightlifting club, because I just started to realize, and I read that book around the same time. I read the book, then I started the club, but I started hosting these events for the weightlifting club, and to host them, I was like, well, I want to incentivize and get more people there. I'm gonna go ask for donations. So I legit just walked down the street and started asking people for gift cards, and was just like, hey, I'm hosting this event. I'd love to see if, would you guys be interested in sponsoring this? Like, some people have given $50 gift cards, some people have given $25 gift cards, and the amount of people that just give you stuff if you ask,
yes,
like blew me away. The amount of like gifts that I got was like anyone who competed in the competition got a prize, and it was like, oh, cool. So all I have to do is ask. So I learned a lot from there. And then I continued that on out in college again, and I hosted a canned food drive, and it was the university's largest canned food drive. And I just did the same thing. I just went up to people and asked them something. And then I realized that if you just ask, you can get so much further than playing what everyone else does. So it's like, if I want something, I'm just going to go ask somebody who's a decision maker, hey, I want this thing. Do you want to provide, or do you want to support this thing, or donate, whatever it is? And same thing with the application. It's like, if I wanted a job, I would go to the person who's like in charge, try to set up a coffee date with them, or send them something being like, yo, dude, I love what you do, man. I would love to just connect and hear more about your mission. And that's how I originally landed one of my first, when I got out of PT school, with the first company that I owned. I did that. And I got some equity in the company, not on purpose, but I was just like, hey man, I see you're a PT, you're a cash PT, and you do something different. I'd love to pick your brain and just, take you to coffee. I don't ever say pick your brain, but like, I didn't know at the time. I was like, yeah, I'd love to just like get to know you and see what you're doing and hear more about like your journey and experience. Did that. By the end of the conversation, he's like, hey man, when you graduate PT school, I've got the side business that we're working on, and I don't really want to do this. Like, and I need an operator to like run this thing. And you've been doing this for a while. Like, if you're interested in this, I'd love to continue this conversation. And later on, that ended to me being a partner in the business, and it was a successful business. And I wouldn't have done that if I didn't just like network and ask, hey, what are you doing? I'd love to learn more. So no, I guess to answer your original question, no, I picked up the ability of being resourceful just by asking people things. And that didn't happen until college, where I did it enough times, I got enough reps of people saying yes to me. I was like, oh, cool. I can just keep doing this. Yeah,
you said the key word, put in the reps. That's such a big part of it, right? Is like, I also had to do the same thing. You're obviously probably familiar then with Tim Ferriss's coffee challenge then?
Is that the one where you lay on the floor? in the coffee shop?
No, that's another challenge that he talks about. This one is basically you just ask for like 10% off of your coffee.
Yeah.
I do that one all the time just for the joy of it. But it's actually one of my favorite reasons that I love going to farmers markets is because it's the only place you can go where you can legitimately barter with people. Sometimes they say no, but you can't go to Whole Foods and be like, hey, can I get 20% off or buy one, get one? They're going to be like, no, like get out of my face. Like, what are you talking about? I love going to farmers market.
That's a great point. I'm going to
just
try
for that. Yeah. Oh, it's so fun. Yes. I do it
Can
all
I
the
get
time.
10% off?
Yes. Or sometimes they'll weigh the bunch of vegetables that I buy. And I was like, can you just like round $1 off the top of that? And they'll do it oftentimes. And it's like just that engagement or that exposure of putting yourself out there. I've always said the number one skill of entrepreneurship or even a business owner or a successful one for that matter is resourcefulness. Just the ability to ask or find kinks in the armor or the third door. Are you familiar with that concept?
No, but I get it. But no, I haven't heard of that before.
So anyways, enough about me. I want to get back to you. So, so let's continue this journey a little bit then. So you were finishing up school, you read some books, you are ready to officially take the leap into entrepreneurship. And you seem to have a conversation with the boss at that moment that maybe steered you in another direction. Yeah.
So while I was like PT school for how it was at Duke was 2 years of it in the classroom and then 1 year of clinical internships, rotations. And during that time, like during the internships, you have to do multiple settings. So I did one that was a normal private practice care that was terrible. It was terrible. And then I did one that was a skilled nursing facility, also terrible. And then I did one that was like a sports center. And the sports center one was where this story came from, but it was a successful sports center. It was like out of my class, I legit picked a number out of a hat of like, all right, you get to pick your school. And I picked number 1. I was like, out of the entire class of 75 people. So I was like, oh, I'm going to the sports place. And I'm glad I did because it gave me this experience. Because if I didn't, I probably could have been like, oh man, all my other clinical rotations sucked. If only I had the sports one, it would have been so much better. I'm going to go do sports for a year. You know what I mean? So I got the experience of, oh, this is the best. And when I was there, I just remember there was one day that we were just a little bit behind. And a little bit behind when you're seeing a patient every 15 to 20 minutes is like really behind. Because everyone's got to you got to look at this person's shoulder, you got to assess this person. And like, it's just one thing after the next. So like every 15 minutes, someone new walks in the door and you're expected to, it doesn't matter if you spent 15 minutes, like only 5 minutes of the 15 you're supposed to spend with this one person, the new person just walked in the door, you got to go greet them. And I just like got so flustered and my face got red and he could tell that I was mad and he like pulled me aside and I just like broke down and lost it. And it's like, this isn't for me. I don't want to do this. And he's like, that's okay, but you have to do this today. And like, he did a good job of coaching me back. He's like, you don't have to do this forever. This might not be the path for you, but we do have patience. So like step up and help right now. But it was really cool to see that because he just showed the light of like, you don't have to do this. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like I just invested $100,000 plus in student loans to make this happen. What do you mean I don't have to do this?
Plus 7 years of your life.
Plus,
et cetera.
So during that time, I had some online clients, and I just kind of reflected on that. And I was like, you're right. Like I don't have to do this. Up to that point, I was like making, I was going back and forth in my own head of like, all right, I kind of like bartering for myself. I was like, oh, I'll do this for 2 years. Oh, I'll do it for 3 years. And it was like, no, dude, like I don't have to do this. Like I don't have to do this. And that was a really impactful moment for me. And I really respect him for sharing that with me and holding space for me to like feel that. And yeah, pretty much from that point on, I was like, cool, I'm going to start a cash-based practice. But the goal was really for me to get online and do all online stuff. And the in-person stuff would just be for fun, which is kind of the route that it ended up happening, like going from that point. But I got out of the in-person stuff within probably 6 months. I graduated, I treated part-time, like 3 days a week, and was doing the marketing for that business. So I was helping them get new clients, like just with like strategy, learning how to run ads. So I got to learn from this first PT practice, but more than anything, it was like, I knew pretty much from the beginning that this was going to be a short-lived thing. And I accepted that as opposed to fighting it.
So you were able to negotiate not actually seeing patients, but running the marketing for that clinic?
Over time, yeah. So I started was doing 3 days a week at this clinic. And then that was I graduated in 2019. 2020 happened. So then during 2020, I went to 1 day a week of treating, and then started taking over the marketing, email campaigns, Facebook ads, all that stuff. And then like 3 months in, they're like, do you want to even treat patients, or you just want to do the marketing? I was like, just do the marketing. Cool. We'll pay you to like do the marketing for us. So for like 6 to 8 months after that, I was just doing their marketing, and then slowly transitioned to going all in 100%, just an online business.
And you still had your own online personal thing going as well, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So I just want anybody listening to this to really pull away something that I think is really important that you did, is that, again, it's like that third door, or that negotiation mentality of like understanding that it's not as straightforward as like you apply for a job and you work that job, or whatever the case might be, right? There's always other ways to work around things or to negotiate a win-win scenario. It's something I'm honestly learning a lot more myself as a business owner of. It's not as simple as like, it could be, but it's not always, doesn't have to be as simple as like, here's my payment, this is the price, this is what you pay, move
Right.
on. And like, it's like, no, we could trade services, we could barter, we could spend out payment plans, we could, whatever it is, right? It's just like understanding there's more than one ways to just look at working with another individual and how much value you can bring from that.
Totally. And I'm learning that same thing now too. Cause like traditionally, even with marketing, I used to think there's only 3 ways. It's like, I got to make organic content that just generates leads. I either have to do that to grow my business, I either have to do Facebook ads, or I have to do outbound messaging, like just sending a bunch of messages out to people. But then I realized, oh no, like I can create win-win scenarios with other business owners to where they can share their lists with me, or they can shout me out and I can shout them out. And that like money, which is what I would use to run ads, is just one way of exchange. But there are other ways to create win-win scenarios to even grow your business to where you don't have to use money. So money is just one way that we exchange, but it's the most common and easily exchangeable way to do things. But a lot of people, especially when they're starting businesses, they may not need money. They may need audience. They may need an offer. Like, hey, I've got an audience, but like, I don't know how to monetize this, and I want to make an extra 5K this quarter. Do you have a product that I can send people to? You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to have your own offer and your own audience and all these things. You could just have one really good service or one big audience that you can monetize with other offers. And I'm learning this now. I'm like, oh shit, man, I wish I knew this earlier, because I was trying to do it all when I started, you know?
Yeah, I totally do. I had the same thing. I had like a specific payment, and if it's like they didn't pay it, then we didn't work together, which was foolish. And I've realized over time that the best business relationships have always been the ones that I go into where my only focus is how can I continue to foster this relationship. I don't even care necessarily so much of what the terms are in terms of like how we work together, or how we pay, or how much it's going to cost. Is like, I'm just focused on how can I bring value to this relationship and really help this person. Like a lot of the stuff that I do now as somebody who also does marketing is like equity situations where we align our goals of like trying to accomplish a certain amount in this business. And it's like, if I don't win, you don't win. Like we're aligned on the same goal here. So I now am incentivized to actually help you get more clients, because then I win as well. Like, and it's just understanding that there's just more than one way of just like, here's your payment, move on, see you never. Like it's less fun too, but
it is. I've done some equity deals too, and I've had both ends of the spectrum. Some that have been incredible, and some that have been like, I'm never doing equity deals again, you know? or like even like rev share deals, right? To where it's like, you know, a certain percentage off of top line or bottom line. But you're totally right though, because it depends on the person and what the win is for them. That could help them feel more safe. And if they feel more safe, they'll be in. But if they just see it as a transaction, they may not.
What's maybe a mistake or failure or something you've learned from maybe some of these deals or equity situations or clients that you work with?
Doing I'm never going to do this like to where I do rev share or profit share based off of, I mean, you hear this advice in dating, right? It's like, don't fall in love with someone's potential. And like, I've done that plenty of times with equity deals. I'm like, dude, your product is so good, but you don't have an audience. Let me help you build an audience, or help me do this thing. And it just didn't work. It was like there needed to already be something there for like really for a lot of the equity, and not equity, but like the profit and rev share model, or you have an audience, or you have something you can plug into the business immediately that will generate something. But yeah, for those rev share and profit share deals, like I've fallen in love with the idea of, oh yeah, we could be the first people in this niche to create this thing. there's no demand for that. You know? So
what's maybe the most expensive mistake you've made? And that could be emotionally or monetarily.
Picking deals that the person you're doing the deal with doesn't align with you or doesn't have the same values as you. Because I've had some that have crushed it, like crushed it, year-over-year growth, incredible. And then it just ends in a brawl because like it just doesn't work well. Like the two parties don't see eye to eye on something, and then it just explodes. So like even though there is profitability, there is like a lot of growth, making sure that you're aligned with the people that you go into business with, because if not, it's not going to end, or whatever the end is. Like there's always going to be an end to business, whatever it is. It's just not going to be as smooth, and like you won't work together as well as you could. So that's been the most expensive monetarily and emotionally for sure, is going into business with people that didn't align with me.
Same. I think most people kind of go through that phase though, especially earlier, because you're kind of just, getting whatever you can take or taking whatever you can get basically. And so I feel like there is most people that have that initial stage of it, but eventually you start to figure out who you work well with and who you don't work well with. And it's a lot nicer place to be when you can get there. And if you're super smart and you're listening to the show and you can do that from the get-go, for sure do it. But easier said than done.
It is way easier said than done.
Yeah.
Because you're like, cash, money. Yeah. You're like when you're starting out. I guess when you're starting out, because you don't have. You said, you're just taking any deal or any opportunity you can get. Yeah.
So this is a perfect segue for me. So speaking of that, when were you officially able to walk away from that marketing role that you had with this other clinic and officially go full time with your own clinic? And what would you say is maybe the main pillars to that success?
A lot of it was timing, for sure. So I went through my own personal development journey in 2021. And I started to transition away from the clinic because I was working with Mike Bledsoe at the time. And Mike's really talented at helping people get what their goals are, get clear on where they're going. And I just remember doing like a perfect day or perfect week exercise. And when I wrote down that piece of paper, I was like, yeah, my clinic time is 0. Like I want to be creating in the morning, which I love doing now. So whether that's building strategies, sales funnels, like just whatever it is, like I like to be being creative in the morning. And then I want to take client calls in the afternoon, and I want to spend time with my family. And at the time I still like, I'm building a family now. Like I'm not married or anything, but like, that was one of the things that I noticed when I wrote down that perfect day was I'm missing family, and all my time is spent working. I was like, I don't want to do this. I want to create, no calls in the morning, spend time with family first thing in the morning, and then spend time with family in the afternoon. So knew that was where I wanted to go. And the first thing I could let go of was going to be the clinic space. So I started letting go of that. That's at the same time when I had the opportunity from COVID, which was a blessing in disguise, to drop from 3 days a week to treating 1 day a week. And I had like some calls and stuff outside of that, but I went from 3 days to 1 day, transitioned from there to just doing the marketing. But all that like was spurred with, okay, what do I actually want to do? And getting clear on what does a perfect day or perfect week look like for me? And once I got clear that it didn't involve the clinic, or even, eventually doing marketing for the clinic, I didn't really even want to do that. Like I kind of knew that going into it. Then I was able to start like, okay, well, what can I get rid of this month? What can I get rid of this month? And I started to I did that in all aspects. Like I started with that, but then I was also still doing like personal training clients online. And I remember I went to a seminar or like an event. It was like a mastermind event. And I got clarity again. I was like, I don't want to be coaching one-on-one anymore. So like literally after I had a hot seat at the event, I like texted 10 people and was like, hey, dude, this is our last month. and I continued to like create space and to allow me to step into something new. But the only way for me to like really take on new things and new projects was for me to create space. And I didn't realize that because at the time I was just like, I didn't have any space or opportunity to create anything new because I was coaching, I was treating patients, I was doing the marketing for the business, I was trying to do my own business. And it was like, dude, I legit have to just cut things out and simplify my life to create space for me to even be creative to do this next thing.
What did you do with that space then? Can we get a little practical on this? Because I love that. I think a lot of people can relate to that. I think that's one of the greatest things that happened to so many people is that did create time and space. For some people, it was really freaking hard. and they didn't know what to do with it. But for some people, they created, they built, they realized that maybe they weren't doing the thing they ultimately wanted to do. What would one do with that time, even if they had that space? Like, how do you get clear on some of that stuff?
So what I did in 2021 is I traveled for 6 months. So I lived nomadically, and I just got in my car with my dog, and there was a group of us actually, which was incredible. There was about 6 or 8 people who had online businesses or coaches who were also kind of going through this, like, what the fuck are we doing next? You know? So we all just like caravanned together and we traveled. And I had some contracts that I was still doing and like helping, but honestly, it was like, I would probably work on those contracts, and that was enough to pay the bills, right? It was enough to pay the bills. And I would do that from like 6 a.m. until 10 or maybe 12. And then the afternoon I would go on a hike. And it was beautiful because first off, travel creates so much creativity.
Totally.
For me, like just new environments, new scenery, new experiences, meeting new people. I did that for 6 months. And by the time it was over, I was like, I'm ready to go home and like create something. So that space, like I still kept enough projects going on to pay me well, but I didn't take on any more than I could. And I used that time to travel, have experiences, connect, and meet new people. And then once I was at the point where I was like, it's time for me to go build, then I went back home and created a lot more routine and structure back into my life to where I didn't take half days of work, and I like started building projects. I started helping, like joining some startup teams and helping them build their marketing stuff from the ground zero up to a point. And yeah.
That's another perfect segue. Thank you for that. I just wanted to tap on that real quick. We don't have to get too deep into it.
Yeah.
But can we maybe give people just like the overarching best things they can do from a marketing standpoint of like, I think the number one question I get and the number one question you get is like, how do I get leads? Right? It's always the question. And so could you maybe give us some advice or give the audience some advice of like maybe some very basic, simple, practical things that they should be thinking about or even doing for that matter that could help them with that situation?
Yeah, totally. I mean, I did a presentation on this a few weeks ago, see if I can remember. There's a certain number of ways you can start to generate leads, but ultimately, like having conversation with people is what's going to lead them to developing a know, like, trust factor to where they want to work with you. Like, I know when I started, I used to think, oh man, if I just create content, they're going to click my link in bio and they're going to sign up with me, or they're going to book a call with me. And throughout the years, I realized, no, like it needs to be more personal. Like I need to actually connect with this person and show them that I can help them, but also like it's got to be a match for me too. Like I need to feel like, yeah, I can help you and I actually want to help you. Like you would be a good client. Like that's what I want. So because of that, like what allowed me to shift a lot of my marketing is how can I create content that generates conversations? Or how can I start engaging with other people who are already creating content and just having conversations with them? It could be meeting them for coffee. It could be just being like, yo, dude, I really like your stuff. Like, tell me more about what you do. But for me, it's like, what are ways I can generate conversations? And you can do that through just outbound messaging, like going and engaging on people's accounts, being like, I think this would be a good client to work with. I'm going to go ahead and start talking to this person authentically and like build a relationship with them. And when the time is right, position my offer and say like, hey, like I'd love to support you professionally if you're open to it. So like having conversations in the DMs can be a great way to generate leads. You can run paid ads. Paid ads definitely are very beneficial if you know what you're doing and you have a good niche. Like you want to be niche down and have a good offer. You can absolutely run paid ads. They are profitable. You just have to know what you're doing. Other ways that you can generate leads is by, like we talked about earlier, is like, can I get in front of an audience and start talking about what I do, but also then that kind of allows you to position yourself as an expert. And that often generates conversations and people come to you because they're like, oh dude, this guy just taught me something on a stage or on a webinar or something. I want to learn more about what he does. So that's another way that you can start to generate conversations. Yeah. I mean, there's lots, but like, I think the biggest shift for me is definitely like having conversations with people.
Yeah, I've not heard that said like that, so I appreciate you sharing that with us. Is that how can I create content that generates a conversation? That's a very unique way. I feel like most people create content to just create attention. not necessarily a conversation, which is a completely different mindset around creating content. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, well, even like two-step posts. So I don't know if you've ever used this or heard this, but it's just like you can your call to action at the end of your post is like, if you made a post about shoulder pain, be like, hey, this is my story of shoulder pain, like we talked about earlier. Stories are great. Hey, I used to deal with shoulder pain. Shoulder pain's been something that's limited me for this number of time in my life, and this is something that helped me get over my shoulder pain. And here it is for you. It's like, there's 3 tips. If you want more, I actually created this free guide on how to get out of shoulder pain. If you're interested, just DM or just message or comment below shoulder, and I'll send it to you. And I've had some clients that have done that and have generated hundreds of comments. And all you do is like, you just DM them. Be like, hey dude, I saw that you commented shoulder. Before I send this guide over, do you mind if I ask you a few questions about like what's going on?
So simple, right?
It's so simple, but you have to have an audience, or it has to get in front of enough people. But like, that's a really easy way of doing it. And the same thing with like on your stories. I had one client who did this 2 weeks ago. He showed a bunch of testimonials. Like he did a bunch of stories where he's like showcasing testimonials. And he's like, hey, I'm just going to put together this free guide on how to drop your first 10 pounds. If I created this, do you want it? And it was like yes or no, like on a poll, mm-hmm. right? And he had at least 6 book calls from that. And that contracted into, I think, a little less than 5, might actually been $6,000. He might have contracted $6,000 from that, and he didn't even make the resource yet. He didn't make the resource. He still hasn't made it, but he still contracted, got him on a phone call and told him his offer and sold him on the offer. But he sold him on something before he even created it. But what did he do is he used his Instagram stories as a way to showcase, here's a bunch of testimonials. Do you want similar results like this? I'm going to put together a free guide. Tap yes if you're interested. Yes. Or there's like 10 leads or 10 or 20 people that you can start conversations with. If they're good fits and good clients, position a call. And that's what he did. And he still hasn't, this was like 2 weeks ago, and he still hasn't finished the guide yet.
If you're listening to this show, have conversations with your people. I feel like that is the take home message. It's so obvious, I would say, but it's also the thing most people don't do. Is there more in exactly how you started your journey? And I think how most people start their journey is it's more comfortable to just create content, and as I call, post and ghost, where they just put something out there and then they hope somehow money just trickles into their pocket. And it's like, if you realize that you're posting because you're trying to create a relationship and you're trying to have a conversation, that changes everything. And you could also even go one step further and start the conversation yourself, which is a lot of what your clients are doing. It's so important to just have a conversation.
Right. And it's okay. And I think a lot of people are scared of it too, is because they're scared of rejection, right? So it's like, if I send somebody a message, even if it's just to connect, it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to send a cold message to somebody and be like, hey, this is my offer. Do you want to buy this? Like, you're probably going to get most people to say no. You might be able to send, there's multiple strategies to go about it. But I was in Costa Rica 2 weeks ago, and you know those like vendors who come up to you at the beach, mm-hmm. and they're trying to sell you stuff? Yes. And how many times a day do you think they hear the word no?
All day.
Like all day. But they still do it. And there's a reason that they have to be somewhat successful, because if they didn't, they wouldn't keep doing it. The same thing for people who beg on the side of the streets. Like, they keep asking for money because every day they do this, and they are getting positive reinforcement by people actually saying yes. If they wouldn't keep doing it. So it's like, those people aren't scared of rejection. They're not scared of being said no to. But I think the reason that most like people in the health space, like entrepreneurs, are scared of it is because a lot of us are still tied up, and our identity is in the business, right? It's like, if someone says no to my coaching, they're saying no to me. Mm. But if you can get over that and be like, no, this is my offer. This is not me. This is my business offer. This is what this is. This is not me. Then it becomes a lot easier, because it's like when you hire a sales rep to do this stuff for you, they don't take it personally. But the business owner often does, because they hold it as like it's them. You
just gave me a realization of people that have really thick skins and can get rejected a lot, like somebody begging on the side of the road, or somebody in Costa Rica on the beach. I had the similar thing in, where was I, Cabo?
Yeah.
And I had a similar realization. But it also makes me think too, is like, imagine if they had like a higher ticket offer. You know what I mean? Like, what if instead of like a T-shirt or a trinket or whatever the hell they're selling for like $1 or $10, if they had that same mentality of like selling like $1 million home, they would never have to be on the beach again.
Right.
Or they could buy the house on the beach because they had so much money. I don't know why I'm just having this realization right now.
Right, though.
But it's true, though, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very true.
If they put that same effort and energy into a high-ticket offer, you would only have to sell it once, and you'd be good to go. I don't know. Anyways, I digress.
Yeah. You're right.
So now you're obviously doing a lot of coaching. Is this a one-on-one group? Kind of where are you at now with your business? And so the reason I ask this is like people often want to know like what's kind of moving forward for you? Like where are you at now? I feel like we've landed to what you're kind of doing day to day. What's kind of things moving forward with you now in this business?
Yeah. So I graduated in 2019, was doing the PT stuff, left that, was doing the marketing, left that, went on an online business and exited that business. And then I started consulting and joining other people's teams. Some of them were for rev share, profit share. And I, this past year, got a lot more clarity on like, okay, what am I actually doing with this? And I was doing a lot of one-on-one consulting, helping people grow, still doing that for like rev share, profit share, plus like a base pay, whatever. And then starting this November, this past month, I launched a group mastermind offer. And that one really excites me because it pretty much puts everything that I've learned thus far about lead generation and marketing into one core offer. So my goal right now is to really serve lots of coaches, lots of physical therapists, chiropractors that want to get into the online space and giving them these tools. So that's where most of my energy for 2023 is going to be. By the end of 2023, I want to have 100 people in the container or who've gone through the container. That's my goal for that. And then outside of that, like I want to use that as a business that's going to help me generate cash flow. And then I do want to get more into business investing. So I have done some deals. I still have some that I have some like equity or rev share in, but I'd like to be more of a passive investor, business investor that has like maybe it's monthly or quarterly meetings with the team that has operators that don't require me to be there. So that's the direction I'd like to go, is to play at a higher level and use the accelerator as a way to just like give back and create cash flow to be able to invest back into other businesses that they might be boring businesses. They don't necessarily need to be online businesses. That's the direction. I have so much interest in just like, I just love business. I love business. I love marketing, sales. I love like being able to do joint ventures, partner with other people, and just like create things. Cause like, that's how change is made. It's like, you get a bunch of entrepreneurs and creative people together. Like, dude, what if we could do this together? Dude, let's do it. Right. So like, yeah, I'm really excited to see where it all goes. But yeah, dude, 2023 is going to be, a lot of it's going to be growing the accelerator, really getting good results for those clients and coaches in there.
Yeah, you must follow Cody Sanchez.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's obviously big on like building portfolios and just loving the game of business. And when you have the mentality of it, that it is a game, it's so much more fun. And I always think about it too, is like, what else would I want to do rather than to work on interesting projects with cool people? Like, yeah, that's literally all business is at the end of the day.
And you got people who pay you money for cool things that you're excited to work on. Like, that's awesome.
Right.
You know?
And also want autonomy and freedom and to travel and do cool things and jump out of planes or I don't know, whatever you're into. But cool, man.
Exactly.
I'm excited for you. Because I know you're going to New Orleans pretty soon here.
Yeah, we're going to go to New Orleans for just 2 days. So we're going to go back. I'm from Charleston, so my girlfriend and I are going to go back there for the holidays. And we'll drive to New Orleans, and she's never been there, so we'll stay there for 2 nights on the way to Charleston, and yeah, spend the holidays there.
I was there this last winter, and had you been there before?
New Orleans?
Yeah.
It was one of my rotations for PT school.
Okay.
So I actually stayed there for about 3 months.
Oh, wow. Okay. What did you think of it?
I mean, it was fun. I couldn't live there.
Sure.
It's not I couldn't. I don't want to live there.
Sure.
Like, I enjoyed lots of it. I mean, the food, the culture, it's really easy. It's a very social place to meet people. It was just kind of dirty.
Super dirty. Are you kidding me? What do you mean kind of dirty? It's a swamp.
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
Well, you're right. Like yeah, and it's it's old too. Like the houses are old. At least where I stayed was very old. It was in Metairie. So Metairie is a little bit like a suburb outside of New Orleans. But even that was, yeah, it was dirty.
The dirty
Like,
South,
kinda.
baby.
You're right.
I got 10 rapid fire questions for you. So it's just first things that come to mind. You ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Best business advice.
Have conversations with interesting people. It could be clients or it could be other business owners. Just have conversations.
Nailed it. Best marketing advice.
Solve a problem. Your marketing and your offer should solve a problem rather than just serve a clientele. Like, what's the problem that you're serving?
That's one of those that sounds simple but not easy.
Exactly.
Which goes back to having conversations. Favorite part about entrepreneurship?
Freedom. Time freedom. For sure.
America. When are you the most productive?
Morning. I wake up, I'm energized.
Are you a deep work guy? Like you just straight into
legit,
it?
like I said, creative time, like I block off 8 to 11 or 8 to 12 and just like blocked off, it just says creative time. And I'm just work on whatever I'm working on.
I do the exact same thing to the point where I have it so dialed in where it's like cup of coffee, phone is in another room. I put on like a timer, some ambient noise, the whole deal.
I have headphones like this on and I'm just
Yeah.
in it.
The cool thing about it is that you start to like build dopamine hits around it of like when you get into the zone and you start feeling really good about it. Because now I sort of look forward to it. It's hard work. I'm definitely focused in the zone, but I sort of look forward to it because I know like the dopamine hits that come from just like being in the zone on something. Who is your inspiration?
Tim Ferriss, for sure. Yeah, it's a Tim Ferriss. I haven't looked at his stuff in a while, but he's definitely an inspiration. And Alex Hormozi's kind of inspiration too. You know, he's got some good stuff out there.
Dude, he's the freaking 10-year overnight success, man. Alex Hormozi crushing every platform on the planet right now.
Yeah.
Tell me one secret about you or something just most people don't know about you.
My parents met in the circus.
Okay, what? Go on.
Yeah, like they were both acrobats in a circus, and that's how they met. And yeah.
Were you also in the circus?
No.
Wow, that is a fun, fascinating fact. Thank you for that. What would you change about yourself?
Man, I don't know. This is a tough one because there's like I always have this like drive or like desire to be more in flow and more like kind of at ease, but also I love being like kind of like rigid and kind of type A. So I'd say maybe a little less rigidity and structure and a little bit more flow.
Dude, this is why I said when I started this episode, I'm disgusted with our stories. We had the same life story and the same challenges. We do basically very similar work. Like, the only difference I feel like is you grew up in South Carolina. I grew up in Minnesota. You're a PT. I'm an OT. Other than that, I can't even begin.
Wait, did your parents meet in the circus too, bro?
My parents actually met via my dad. He likes to ride motorcycles. Okay. So we picked up my mom because my mom was like, "Ooh, he's a good-looking guy on a motorcycle."
That's cool.
We don't have to get into that because whole other story. No, my parents were not in the circus. That would have been nuts. What is your favorite app or resource right now?
Camo right now is what I've been using a lot for my content creation. It's been really supportive. I'll tell you why. So like if you're in I like to repurpose content. It's one of the things I do that just saves a lot of time. And with Camo, it's like I should get paid for this. It's like a sponsorship.
Plug.
No, I don't get anything. But it's like a $6 to $8 a month subscription. But you can hook up your phone and use the backside of your camera and put it right underneath your webcam when you're on a Zoom call. Or if you're just so if you're doing a podcast, I could put it right underneath my webcam that's recording me. So I have the webcam that's working that I'm talking to the host in. And in the backside, I actually have my mic and my phone connected to my computer that's recording on the computer, the high quality audio and the backside of the camera. So for Q3, that was one of the ways that I created content was I used this app. I put it right underneath the camera. And when I had that finished podcast recording, I just sent it to an editor in the Philippines and he cropped it up for me. So Camo is a really good app. I'm very grateful for it. So if you do have live calls or anything like that, and even if you have a coaching call, you might drop a nugget in a coaching call. You can just have it up and running, and then it's recording on your computer so your phone doesn't store it, and then you can send it off, and voila.
Beautiful. Love that nugget. When were you the happiest?
Oh man, I mean, traveling comes up again. 2021, just traveling around the country was such a blast. I got to do it with some incredible humans. Great, they're all coaches, entrepreneurs, and we just went and did lots of really fun things. We camped for like 3 weeks in a row. And so I'd camp. I'd wake up and go to a coffee shop for like 6 to 11, 6 to 12, and then go hike. Man, I love that time of life. Yeah.
So when's the next 6-month trip coming up, man?
I don't know if 6 months will be the thing, because now I have a girlfriend, and we both work online, and I would love to do it. We'll see. I don't know if a 6-month trip will work. A 1 month will definitely work, but both of us are building a business, and traveling works really well when you're operating and running a business, but to build, you need some routine. You don't need it, but it's really helpful to have routine and structure. Like, like when you get to the coffee shop and the Wi-Fi's down and you're trying to build something, it gets really triggering. But if you're just operating a business and it only takes a few hours a week to maintain, that's a different story. So I'm in the phase of building. So like routine and structure is good. That's why I could do it for a month if I went to a place that had good Wi-Fi, but I like my work routine right now.
Same, dude. I've always said too, just build a life you don't need a vacation from. It's kind of the way I look at it. Last question. And you can't say the people because that's the answer I most commonly get. But what's your favorite part about Austin? That was the first thing you thought of, wasn't it?
Yeah, totally.
It's everyone's answer. And man, so I reached a point where I was like, okay, I've heard this 10 times in a row.
I don't think I'd be here for the people, for sure. But
I totally agree. But
man, when it comes to like health and wellness, the opportunities here, so not just the people. Yeah, I mean, the people make it possible. But like we were just talking about before this, like sauna, cold plunge. There's just like lots of recovery centers. If you want to get blood work done, there's some really good practitioners and people here who can help you. So I'd say a lot of it, is just the access to recovery, health, performance, things that are here that a lot of the other world doesn't get yet. They may get in the future. They're just not there yet.
Yeah, it feels like the health and wellness mecca right now.
Yeah.
I have one more question. Before I ask that question, though, I just want to acknowledge you, man, for being self-aware and listening to your intuition and just continuing to follow your curiosities and just really do what you love. Because I know even for myself, I would say that maybe that's the one thing where we're different is that I can be pretty headstrong on a path and not really paying attention to what I should or shouldn't be doing. So I just want to acknowledge the fact that you've obviously been good about paying attention to what you should be. And you obviously figured it out fairly quickly. I mean, you were in a clinic and you're like, okay, this isn't for me, and just decided to follow that path. And I think that's great. I think if more people did that, they would be a lot happier. And so I just want to acknowledge that.
Thank you. Yeah, dude, I think curiosity is probably, if not one, it is one of the biggest factors that makes or breaks like an entrepreneur, is being curious. So that's like one of my core values is curiosity. So thank you for that. Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah, between curiosity and resourcefulness, I feel like those are like, you're unstoppable.
Yeah.
You're just curious about things and then you figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
I love that. Last question. What's your plug though before I ask this question? Where can people find you?
You can find me at, most of my handles are at Dr. Matt Shiver. That's Instagram, TikTok, I believe LinkedIn as well, and also Facebook. Again, almost all of them are at Dr. Matt Shiver, and then mattshiver.com is my website.
And it's spelled like Shiver, if anyone's wondering.
Yeah. Yep, Shiver.
So nobody knows why it's pronounced Shiver, but we're going to move on. So
yeah, I don't know.
So last question. It's really, what's your best advice? And what I mean by that is, so I think a lot of people listening to the show, or people early in their journeys of entrepreneurship or wanting to do their own thing, whether it's being a coach or a practitioner or starting a clinic or really getting out of their 9-to-5, whatever it is what's maybe the best piece of advice you could give somebody just to kind of get moving in the right direction, or even what they should be focusing on just to make sure they're making the right steps?
Yeah, there's a few things. I mean, the first thing that came up was like, man, follow your heart. But a lot of times you don't know necessarily what you want at that stage, right? So it's like, I'm following my heart. I know it's something different. I just don't know what it is. So the next step would be, who are other people who are doing it already, and go spend time around them. And oftentimes when you're around them, they'll start talking about courses, books, things that they went through to get where they're at, and then start consuming that stuff. But find someone who's done it, doing something you want to do, or has already done it, and what did they do to get there, and just kind of like follow that trajectory again. That was huge for me. It's like, once I got involved in one group, they like gave me access to all of their courses they took. They spent like $1,000 on some of these courses, and I'm like, yes, give it to me. And like just went through all of it so fast. Yeah, that was a good tip.
I think if I'm going to title this show, it's going to be Follow Your Curiosities. Thanks for being on, man.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it. Hey friend, thanks for listening to the show, and if you have any feedback for me about the show or any other guests that you'd want to see in the show, definitely shoot me a message. I love engaging with my audience and figuring out how I can provide the best value possible to the people listening to this show. Before you go, I only have one ask of you, and that would be to check out my 3 Tips Tuesday newsletter. It's 3 marketing tips every Tuesday specifically for the health and fitness entrepreneur to help them attract new leads. If you press the link in the description, it'll take you directly to the archive of all my previous newsletters, and you can decide for yourself if it's something for you. If you end up finding it helpful, you can just sign up for the newsletter and you'll get it in your inbox every Tuesday. Thanks again, and keep hustling, my friends.